Hey, what's up, y'all? You know what time it is. It's your boy Preston here. And this is my post-fight reaction, bro. Man, bro, I'm excited about this. I hope you guys are excited. I'm excited about it. You know what I mean? But this is my post-fight reaction to Christian Mbilli versus Lester Martinez, ending to a majority draw, I believe. You know, like it was a draw, and stuff like that. I'll let you know in a little bit, and stuff like that. But it was but the fight ended in a draw, and stuff like that. And this was a really good fight. It was a war, between between two of these fighters. I don't know if Christian Mbilli was going up in weight, or if he was just fighting at, or if he was just fighting at 160, or something. I don't really know, or is he 168? I don't really, but that boy Lester Martinez is really big compared to that dude, Mbilli, dude. Like, look at that size advantage, look at that, like if they were standing next to each other, he's way taller than Mbilli. Like that dude Lester, like he's like what, because Mbilli's not that short. Like he's like 5'10", and stuff like that. That boy Lester had to been like 6'2", 6'3". You know what I mean? Like he had to been like, I don't really know what Mbilli's height is, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But or he's a shorter type of 160 pounder. I don't really know, and stuff like that. But either way, there was a big size advantage in this, man. And that's the thing. Let me go look, man. Actually, Mbilli's more shorter. He's 5'9". You know what I'm saying? And Lester Martinez, he's 5'11". Because Mbilli, he's 5'9". Lester's 5'11". But I would say in a half or some shit. I would say more like 6 foot. And stuff like that. Like he stands more like 6 foot more than 5'11". But I can understand the 5'11" part. You know what I mean? But it was still an even size. I'm just saying, it just, it just Lester's a big, super middleweight. Like I feel like he could go to light heavyweight if he wanted to. Like honestly, like I think he would do just as good in light heavyweight. And that's the thing, because I never heard of this dude Lester Martinez before. Ever heard of this dude Lester before. Until now. You know what I mean? Like, I know he had some good wins, but I never heard of his name before. Until now. You know what I mean? And I know how good Mbilli is, you know what I mean? Mbilli's a very good fighter. Very good fighter. A very crafty fighter. You know what I mean? He knows, his type of style of fighting, he can mix it up in different types of fights. You know what I mean? He fights in the same style, but it can go in any type of fight. Kind of like what I said about Virgil Ortiz, that his style can be versatile with anything. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, and it even proved in this fight that it's versatile. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit. But this dude Lester Martinez came out of nowhere, man, and it just he put on a fight, man. He was like, oh, Turkey Alashiki on Riyadh on Netflix. Bro, biggest payday of my life. He put on a show, bro. Like Lester Martinez put on a show. You know what I mean? And hold on, guys. Eating chips, you know what I mean? These flaming hot Cheetos are busting, but yeah, man, but that boy Lester came out of nowhere, bro. Like he literally came out of nowhere, and he just he came out and he wanted to fight. and stuff like that. He came out and he wanted to fight. He wanted a war. Lester wanted. You know what I mean? And yeah, and and Mbilli, he had to fight for that and he had to be in that war. It's like that's the thing, because if not, if he started backing up, you don't want to back up because you have to stay in one range against a Lester. You know what I mean? Like you can't, be at far range against Lester. That's where Lester does his best at, is where he can beat you up from far distance. Like that's what he wants you at, is far distance. So he can continuously throw his punches. But then also he likes to be like throw his hands in the inside too. But but it's just like with his type of lengthy arms, and stuff like that. Look at the size of those arms too. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing, man. It's just like, you don't want to get hit by those, and shit like that, like at far distance. Like it's going to be very hard to wanting to get into the inside, and stuff like that, like that's the thing, but, look at the size of Mbilli's arms, you know what I mean? Like look at the size of Mbilli's arms. Like his arms are, he has a good size too with his arms, and shit like that, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying I'm just saying, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, and stuff like that, But overall, I didn't watch the fight, and stuff like that when I was, and stuff because I was working, because I'm currently working at the fair right now, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But, but basically, yeah, you know what I mean? But yeah, but I watched a 15-minute highlight, and stuff like that, and it showed me a good enough information, you know what I mean? And, like my dad, he said it was a very good fight, but he thought that Mbilli like slightly edged it, but he watched the whole fight. You know what I mean? He watched the whole fight. Me, I watched like the little bits of the highlights, you know what I mean? Like, and stuff like that. But, it was still enough for me to understand, you know what I mean? But I thought a draw was was the right answer in my opinion, and stuff like that. I thought that was the right answer, because both of the fighters, evenly, won, their parts of the rounds, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And and overall, like I had to fight 6 rounds. Yeah, sorry about that, but but like I had it like 6 rounds to to 6. I had it 6 rounds to 6 apiece. You know what I mean? But it's just like if I did have a winner in this fight, I thought Lester did enough to pull off the victory, and stuff like that. But if I was a judge, it's not like I would have gave the fight to Lester. I'm not gonna lie, because Lester, it's like I never even heard of Lester Martinez before. A lot of people haven't ever heard of Lester Martinez before. He has some good wins, but never heard of him before until now. Until he fought Christian and Billy, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, and we all know who Christian Mbilli is. He fights all the time in the United States, like he, started off with fighting in his, relative, country, France, like hopefully I said that right, and that's the thing. But then after that, he started getting that money, and then he came over to the United States. And he got that big old bread, you know what I mean? And then he's like, man, this United States money is insane, you know what I mean? So that's the thing and shit, so yeah, man, and stuff like that, so he did his thing, like Mbilli, Mbilli, they both did their thing, like they both, if people thought that Mbilli won, I mean, that's like everybody has their own right to their opinion, you know what I mean? There's ways of how, because it was a very close fight. If you like more of like the patientness, and countering, and stuff like that, then you're going to go with Christian and Billy for sure, and stuff like that, But if you're just going to go with overall just punch output, then you're going to go with Lester Martinez, but and so like, that's the thing. But in this fight, I'm gonna go with the punch output of Lester Martinez. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, So yeah, man, like that's that. Like I have to rewatch the full fight. You know what I mean? But and like I'll come out with like that video soon. And with my opinion on that fight soon. And stuff like that. You know what I mean? But but yeah, man, and stuff like that, But I just felt like Leicester did enough to win him. Well, not to win. I felt like it was a draw. I felt like it was an even draw. But if it was a decision, I felt like Leicester did enough to win it, man. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, both these fighters fought their heart out, man. Both these fighters got paid. Both these fighters, like impressed Turkey Alashake, and stuff like that. Both these fighters, like, there was no running in this fight. Both these fighters were squabbling against each other, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like just all punch output. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit. And so like, yeah, man, like this was a good fight, man. This was a really, really, really good fight, and I'm just saying, I love, and this is what I love about boxing, man. This is what I really love about boxing. This is what I truly love about boxing is where you have, a high name champion of Christian Mbilli, and stuff like that, fighting against, somebody who I never even heard of, and this dude put up a really fucking good fight. You know what I mean? I love these underrated battles. You know what I mean? Like, I love these underrated battles for champions. You know what I mean? Like, I love these underrated battles for champions, and that's the thing and stuff like that, So, yeah, man, and stuff like that, but yeah, what a fight. Good fight. Overall, I'm just gonna say that this fight is a draw, because I feel like this fight should deserve a draw, because both these fighters won evenly the rounds, and overall, Mbilli, he is the champion. Mbilli, he is the more name of the fighter, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's the thing and stuff like that. And that's the thing. So like, yeah, but it was a good fight, and overall, I would like to see this fight again, you feel me? I would definitely like to see this fight again, and stuff like that, Even though we haven't had a rematches in a minute, and stuff like that, but like, I wouldn't say in like a minute, and stuff like that. It's only been like almost like a year, but, and stuff like that, I would probably say, but I would like to see a rematch between these fighters though, and stuff like that, Like, if I would say who would win in the rematch, I would think that Mbilli would know exactly but they both would know exactly what they would need to do to winning. So I don't really know. It could be the same, like, honestly, I think it would be the same exact result, to be honest. I just think both these fighters are just made for each other, you know what I mean? Like, both these fighters throw a lot of punches. Both these fighters, have power in their punches, you know what I mean? And both these fighters can take punches, you know what I mean? So, like, that's the thing, so, like, if they did fight each other, I think it would be the same result, you know what I mean? But I do feel like that Mbilli would probably know, would probably, be a little bit of a step ahead of Leicester next time, and stuff like that, And I feel like that, like that Mbilli would, win the fight. But we'll see though, and shit like that. We'll see. But that's more my prediction for that fight, and stuff like that. I think that Mbilli would probably know what he needs to do, and stuff like that to win next time, and stuff like that. But both these fighters would. But I feel like Mbilli, like, if it came down to a winner, it's hard to go. Damn, that was a hard miss from a kick. But if it came down to a winner, I would go with Christian Mbilli, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And yeah. But thank y'all for watching this video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'm Preston. Peace out, y'all.